There's a reason why most Christians today see Joe Biden as anti-Christian.
I don't care if you think I'm Satan reincarnated.
But hardly anyone knows how his political ambition led him to betray the values of his faith for the sake of political power. Here's what happened. Joe Biden was 6 years old here, attending St. Paul's Catholic Primary School in Pennsylvania, where he encountered his first set of bullies who called him Stutterhead and Dash, all due to his speech impediment.
It was something that I thought was the worst curse could happen to me because everybody makes fun of it.
Now, not only were the students bullying him because of his stutter, but after going to the teacher for refuge, instead of protecting him, the teacher apparently joined the bullies and also teased them. Now, just like it would be for any kid his age, this made him feel powerless because the people who were in power, who were meant to protect him, were making it worse by using their position to exacerbate the problem. So without anyone else to turn to, he eventually went to his dad for comfort, and his dad told him that the solution to all of his problems could be found at the foundations of the Catholic Church.
My father would say the cardinal sin of all sins is the abuse of power. Whether it's a man raising his hand to a woman, whether it is the government abusing its power, basic essential elements of what constitutes Catholicism.
It was then that Biden knew what he needed to do. The Catholic values included things like being honest, being pro-life, and particularly to Biden, preventing an abuse of power. So all of this led Biden to consider becoming the greatest authority that he could conceive of at the young age of 6, a priest. But there was only one little problem.
And I would talk like that.
He worked on his stutter every day for years, practicing citing poetry in the mirror until he had a grasp on it. And after he mastered it, he aspired to greater and greater positions. He was elected class president his junior and senior year of high school, which prompted him to have an even more ambitious vision. A vision that would change his trajectory for the rest of his life. The greatest position of power that would enable him to protect others from being bullied. And that was becoming the president of the United States of America. Biden eventually decided to get his start by running for a seat in Senate.
Democrat Joseph Biden of Delaware.
In 1972, he ran against J. Caleb Boggs and won, securing a seat as a U.S. Senator. He celebrated his victory during his 30th birthday party as he was preparing to be sworn in as one of the youngest senators in U.S. history. But just as he was about to take his biggest step towards his goal of securing power, and just weeks before he was supposed to be sworn in, the unexpected happened. On December 18th, 1972, and just 1 month after his birthday, Biden's wife was taking their kids Christmas shopping when their car was struck by a semi-trailer, giving one of his sons a broken leg, his other son a skull fracture, and tragically leaving both Biden's wife and their 1-year-old daughter Naomi deceased. As devastating as this was, Biden still decided to keep his seat with the Senate so that way he could prevent people from abusing their power and promoting the values of his faith. He quickly made it clear that he was anti-abortion, considering abortion to be a gross misuse of power, and even saying that the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision went too far, and he didn't think that a woman had the sole right to say what should happen to her body. The values of his faith and securing a position of power was so important to Biden that not even the death of his wife and child could stand in his way. Well, it seemed that way, until he made a series of bad decisions that put him on the path to compromising those very same values. And that's when Biden really started to change. In 1987, Biden decided to run for president and was considered one of the best orators among the potential presidential candidates, which was an amazing feat given his history of struggling with speech. But because he seemingly knew that he didn't have enough of an impressive resume to win the election, he started to push aside some of his religious values and instead appeared to lie about some of his credentials.
Back to law school, and in fact ended up in the top half of my class.
Which just wasn't true, and that wasn't the only lie that he told.
When I marched in the civil rights movement, I marched with tens of thousands of others to change attitudes.
That wasn't true either, and he was also even accused of plagiarism.
I did not know that was a Robert Kennedy quote. My mistake.
And unfortunately for Biden, it was all of these issues and more that caused him to lose his 1998 run as the US president.
I made some mistakes.
Followed by him losing again in 2008. But even though he may have compromised on the ethics of honesty, one Catholic value that he did hold on to was his position on abortion, seeing it as a massive abuse of the mother's power. And in a 2006 interview, he even said,
I do not view abortion as a choice and a right. I think it's always a
tragedy.
However, even though Biden was still going to mass every week, it didn't take long for him to realize that if he wanted to become the next US president, he would have to start considering compromising his convictions on abortion as well. He decided to run again in 2015, changing his position on abortion slightly, seemingly as a way to prevent his pro-life values from hindering his win. He said, "I'm prepared to accept that at the moment of conception there's human life and being, but I'm not prepared to say that to other God-fearing, non-God-fearing people that have a different view." So basically, he still believed that life starts at conception and that abortion was wrong, but he didn't think that he had the right to impose that belief on others. And so this became his talking point as he continued the campaign, and it seemed this time that he had a better chance of winning the election. That was until he experienced yet another unfortunate tragedy. On May 30th of 2015, Biden's son Beau, who was also working on the Biden campaign, tragically died of brain cancer. And even though Biden was running, he simply couldn't continue and therefore withdrew from the presidential race. It was at this point that it seemed that it just wasn't meant to be. This appeared to be the end of Biden's hopes and aspirations to prevent abuses of power as the US president. And so we didn't hear much from Biden for a while. That was until someone else entered the White House who reminded him of the reason why he wanted to become president in the first place: Donald Trump.
And now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
Here's Biden. Thank you.
After seeing how Trump was behaving in the office, Biden decided to get back into the race in order to stop him. So he decided to run again in 2019, but only this time he was willing to shed even more of his Catholic values in pursuit of it. Given the inconvenient fact that Biden was anti-abortion and the Democratic Party was pro-abortion, Biden had a really tough decision to make. Would he continue to maintain his Catholic values and his pro-life view and potentially lose his chance at becoming the next US president? Or would he be willing to actively fight against the pro-life position and potentially reach his lifelong goal of becoming the president? Well, as you probably already know, not only did Biden come out in support of abortion, but he also went back on his previous statements about Roe v. Wade.
Two of them will vote to overrule the Roe v. Wade, the law of the land. It's wrong. It's pernicious. And we have to stop it.
It was at that moment that more and more people started questioning the legitimacy of Biden's faith and even leaving some Catholic priests infuriated.
He supports the utter slaughter of the unborn. What have you done? What have you done to your church?
And this is part of what prompted Biden's rival, Donald Trump, to go so far as to say,
My opponent is against oil, guns, and God. No religion, no anything. Hurt the Bible, hurt God. He's against God.
And to make matters even worse, Biden, who went to mass every week, was now seen as someone who turned their back on God at this point.
The South Carolina church is making national headlines after a priest denied communion for former Vice President Joe Biden.
Once the Catholic Church saw what Biden was doing, they denied him communion because of his new anti-Catholic stance on abortion. However, surprisingly, in spite of all of the backlash that he was getting from the Catholic community, the Pope actually continued to support Biden, even going so far as to say that Biden was still a good Catholic. But even though the Pope might have thought this, the vast majority of others simply didn't feel that way.
You might have heard that the president is Catholic. Perhaps you've heard that. Perhaps you heard that he went to mass on Wednesday. I don't care. That does not impress me.
And that sentiment seemed to only get worse as Biden continued to rapidly lose support among Protestants and Catholics. But what really sealed the deal for so many people was when Biden signed a gender-affirming executive order.
As a result, the federal government is now trying to force the College of the Ozarks to open its bathrooms, showers, and dorm rooms to whatever gender someone thinks they are at the time. It would force the college to abandon its biblical principles.
He also attempted to overturn laws in favor of the contraceptive mandate, which essentially requires organizations to medically cover contraceptives and other abortion-related drugs, which of course violated the basic Catholic values that Biden was once passionate about. And furthermore, the administration made it so that way Christian organizations would have to hire non-Christians or even anti-Christians to their organization if they apply. It was all of these things and more that were taken to be against religious liberty, which contributed to Biden's already low Christian approval rate, which only continued to plummet the longer that his term went on. And to this day, Biden hasn't shown any desire to reverse this trajectory and prioritize the values of his faith, which only goes to affirm what many believed anyway, that Biden's ultimate allegiance is not to his faith, but to his desire for political power. By the way, this video is part of our What Do They Actually Believe series, so let me know in the comments who you'd like to see me cover next. And before you say Trump, don't worry, I got you. In my opinion, Trump's views are far more surprising and interesting than Biden's. Go ahead and click here to see what I mean, and the next time that you find yourself putting your political values over the values of your faith, what are you gonna say? What do you mean?